Here we go. It's another crazy Cowboy camp. You got a guy named Lucky Whitehead who said, I didn't commit this petty larceny. I wasn't even there. And then we find out today he was released and he wasn't there, according to his agent. So what is the story? Are they going to bring him back or is he done?
No, he's done. They're not going to bring him back. And I actually just got off the phone with him. Very disappointed in the organization. If you go around their practice facility, there's a lot of signs around there. It talks about accountability and just being a good teammate in that, and he doesn't feel like the Cowboys held up their end of the bargain on this deal. He felt like he should have got a chance to kind of clear his name. He didn't when he found out about it. It was right after one of these practices yesterday, and within 2 hours he was let go. And so very, very disappointed in the Cowboys that they didn't give him a chance.
How surprised, John, were you that Jerry took a hyper-aggressive stance on defending Ezekiel Elliott? And we have an alleged domestic violence here, and we know how that's going to play in the NFL. And Jerry was hyper-aggressive defending him. Did that surprise you?
It did a little bit, just because of, like you mentioned, with domestic violence. It's just one of those topics right now that you really want to distance yourself from. And really, when he was asked about it the other day, Ezekiel Elliott, it wasn't really the domestic violence it was asked about as much as the recent bar altercation that he was involved in. So for Jerry to bring that up, it did surprise me a little bit. But at the other side of it is just, it's Jerry Jones, so you never really know for sure what he's going to say. But I think it's more than a domestic violence is what Ezekiel Elliott's facing. It's this culmination of all these things he's been dealing with off the field.
Cowboy fans will say you media guys are making a mountain out of a molehill. Is there deep concern within the organization, John, that Ezekiel Elliott is just really immature?
I think there's some, for sure. There is definitely some concern there. They will tell you that they did all their due diligence in the draft process, that they went back and went into everything that they could find from him, going all the way back to their Pop Warner days, all the way throughout his time at Ohio State. But there's clearly this pattern here over the last year where his name has been in the headlines for what he's done on the field, but just as much for what he's done off of it. So yeah, there's definitely concern there, and it kind of makes me wonder if, because of this and other instances that have happened with this team recently, if Lucky Whitehead wasn't just the fall guy for all of this.
Yeah. Compare the vibe this year. Does it feel like Dak Prescott's team today?
Without a doubt, 100%. And it actually surprises me how much it does. In just 365 days that this franchise, that Tony Romo was the quarterback for a decade, and just how fast everything moves forward. I guess that speaks a little bit to the NFL and how it really is just a young man's game. But midway through last season, I felt like he had won the locker room over, and I've seen nothing since then to think that it hasn't just escalated even more by the day. He's won over all the veterans, and when you see him out here, you can just tell that he's the leader of this team. And you can even get the sense, talking to Des Bryant yesterday, that they're getting tired of even being asked about Romo. They want to move forward. This is Dak's team, and they're ready to follow him. As surprising that is for a guy that was drafted in the 4th round just a year ago.
It is Jon Machota, Dallas Morning News, joining us from Oxnard, California, live at the Cowboys camp. They have one of the most difficult schedules, John, I've ever seen. In fact, I showed it earlier to my audience today that 12 of the 16 games, and we can put it up here on the screen, would qualify as the biggest game in the NFL. And we're talking big teams on the road. I think the NFC East is getting better. I think the Giants beat them twice last year. They've got to go to Denver. They got to go to Arizona. They face Seattle. They got to go to Oakland. Is it possible that this team could be really good, but that, John, they're not a playoff team based on the most rigorous schedule easily in the NFL? How do you think it plays out?
Oh, there's no question about that. They were very fortunate in the injury department that the biggest injury that they really had was Tony Romo going down, and you were able to replace him with this kid that you just can't expect that to happen all the time. They had Lyle Collins go down last year, and you had this Ron Leary come off the bench and play like one of the better starters in the league. And obviously with the money you got in free agency, it proves that. If they have a significant injury in a couple areas on this team, linebacker being one, tight end being another, there's not a lot of depth at some of those positions. So that, coupled with the fact that the Cowboys haven't had good back-to-back years since those Super Bowl years, and that's a long time ago. So you couple that with the difficult schedule like you just mentioned, and they could be just as good as they were last year and only win maybe 8 or 9 games. I think that they'll be around a 10-win team. I don't think they'll win the division. I think that'll be the Giants, but I think they have a chance to be the wild card team, and if they're hot at the right time, then I think that they're as good as any team to make a run in the NFC.
And finally, Jon Machota, Cowboys beat writer, Dallas Morning News, live at Cowboys camp in Oxford. This is almost It's a weird question to ask because I think he's a good coach, but Jerry runs the franchise. Let's say the Cowboys go 9-7, don't make the playoffs. You know, Jerry's weird. He's a couple of great coaches, didn't work, and that he kept Chan Gailey longer than I would have kept him and Wade Phillips. How secure is Jason Garrett if they go at 9-7?
I think it's pretty secure considering the fact that, you know, you're talking about a coach of the year before. You know, 9-7, I don't think that would happen. And again, it goes back to the injuries. If this team stays relatively healthy and they only win 7 or 8 games, then yeah, then that comes into question. I could see that being a possibility. I don't think it's 100% that no matter what happens this season, that he definitely has his job next year. You know, he's had a lot of time with this organization, and they haven't been able to get back into the NFC Championship game again, something that they haven't done since those Super Bowl years. So as far as a guy that won Coach of the Year, I would say it's not as solid as you would think. But if there are the injuries in that and they can't overcome that, I think that'll be considered, and that might not be a factor. But yeah, they have to win. They have to put together another big season like they did last year.